Good day, Patrick.
I don't
Neither.
I have a new contract.
Sure, why not?
6 years, $4.5 million. Let's go.
Thank you, Jim.
Or five.
Welcome to everyone. We obviously had a week off with not much to talk about last week, and also some logistics on our end. But here we are. Canucks are back in action. Neither of us are wearing red. Probably a mistake. Basking in the glow of Canada winning the Four Nations, which we'll get to. We're also going to talk about Quinn Hughes a bit. We're going to talk about the goaltending. We're going to talk about the Canucks playoff position. So thank you for joining us. Please listen to the end. Leave your thoughts and comments, thoughts and prayers. And subscribe to our Canucks report. You'll get all this doled out to you every week. Read Patrick's stuff at theprovince.com, vancouversun.com. Patrick, we should probably start immediately with the Four Nations, though there wasn't a Canuck element to it per se, other than ex-Canuck JT Miller and his sucking Trump's toes before the game, and obviously coming off extremely tone deaf. But who you can say, who cares? He doesn't play here anymore. But the tournament was weird. Obviously, when it was announced, I just sort of it's like, here we go, another all-star iteration. There's only Four Nations. Like, who cares? We were out for dinner in our neighborhood in Mount Pleasant last Saturday when the first game was on, and I knew the levels have been cranked up because of the rhetoric and because of the political climate that gave it more of a 72 series feeling, sure. I think. But I was taken aback a little bit by how much attention the game had. Like, it was fantastic, down to the point that there was a young fellow, probably late 20s, early 30s, who came in late with his girlfriend, sat down next to us. Their seat was obscured by a pole, and he proceeded to stand up and leave his girlfriend sitting at the table by herself, scrolling through her phone while he disappeared to watch the game on TV. They ended up leaving without ordering after the game, so read into that what you will. But no, I was a little surprised at how it took on. So it's good for hockey, certainly. Brought a lot of attention to it. How did you see it?
I watched it from the comfort of my own. Actually, mostly from
how did you see it?
But I
just mean like your impressions of everything that happened.
No, but I'm just, and I did watch game one, the first Canada-US game last Saturday with a buddy at a bar in now bustling, amazing Brentwood. That's a freebie. They're not paying me. Listen, I think it was two different things. I think there was the underneath, certainly for the hockey fan, the best on best appeal was there. Going into it, you weren't sure, but you were pretty sure the players were gonna go at it, and they did. And then obviously we saw in the game on Saturday how much they went at it. Now the game's delivered. Even the Sweden-Finland game obviously was a fantastic game. Even those sort of undercard games on Monday that Canada and Finland had something to play for. Canada did, and then, which did make the dead rubber of U.S.-Sweden. But even the U.S.-Sweden game was fun. Like, it was an enjoyable exercise. And, that part mattered. And then, like, lying is how we all, I think almost all of us feel. We are proud of our country. We believe in our country. And the sort of the metaphorical importance of all of this. You think about how so many of us reacted for the win last night. Oh God, we needed this. All the stuff that's going on, all the frustration we're feeling, listening to this loony yell about what he thinks we want. It's just hot, right? Like in the grand scheme of things, it's just a hot game. But it plays to our emotions, and people bought in. And the NHL locked into that. The setup was good just from a sporting standpoint, and it would have drawn hot fans. But there is absolutely no it drew in a lot of it. And, moments like this show why, in the end, nationalism is a challenge, and obviously there are risks in any kind of rah-rahness of any this kind of stuff. But at moments like this, it's why we always end up caring about the Olympics, right? Like, it's people we can connect with, people that we know deep down feel similarly to us, understand the world similarly to us. These are all wealthy hockey players. Most of them have been well-to-do most of their lives. That's just the reality of how hockey works now. But in the end, they're also from here. They're from down the street. They went to many of the same schools we did. The basic sort of philosophy of the world of how we feel, we work together, how our healthcare system works, how our education system works, how we should feel about each other walking down the street, which is positive. We're not afraid that, we're not nervous that someone's going to pull a gun out. We're not nervous about what other people look like for the most part, I think. We still obviously have things we can get better at, but we are a country that feels that strongly, that sense of community still. And, there was no better example than exactly as you said, that people were really dialed in on this game on Thursday night.
It's a little bit esoteric, as people who have listened to us before know that I'm a bit of a dork, and that, I love my memorabilia.
Yes. Yes.
And like, the esoteric part of sports, my, jerseys and all that stuff matters to me for some weird reason.
Yeah.
But I was fascinated yet again at another trophy being presented last night. And I find it so funny that in the NHL, who lauds the Stanley Cup, it looks the greatest. They hand it to the players. They do all this lore about what happens to the trophy. I'm like, there was that horrendous, like, crystal encased trophy for the World Cup of Hockey from like 10, 20 years ago. Then there was a new one that they had, that weird thing with the sticks for the last World Cup of Hockey. There's the old Canada Cup, which is fabulous looking, looked dangerous though, like the jagged half leaf. And now we got a brand new trophy last night. Like, did they just go to Johnston's and like go through the catalog and it was like, oh, let's get the plastic laminated? Like, I'm fascinated about where these trophies are.
Yeah.
The trophy presentation kind of brought me back to earth, that like, oh, okay, this is a little bit hokey, right? There's generic music playing, and
at least, I mean, did it look to you like it was made of plastic?
Come on, this Gary Bettman, he's made of plastic.
I guess so. I mean, I look at the, I guess part of me goes, you go to the Hockey Hall of Fame, or you go to any sports Hall of Fame, and you look at all the cute little trophies they used to hand out, right? Like the when I worked.
But where do you think these trophies are, Patrick? Who has the World Cup of Hockey? The like 2 or 3 different iterations.
Later, I don't know. You hire those people who do these things. You hire a metal worker. I mean,
there's an off-season project for you.
Metal worker makes trophy. How about that?
Yeah.
But I was just meant to say, I think about all the old trophies. The local intermediate shot put champion. Like, you used to have things like that. They'd mint a trophy, and here you go. And like, 1927 Vancouver Intermediate, distance running championship. Like,
I could go down a rabbit hole now, but we won't, because we should probably talk about Canucks. There's 3 points. You wrote about this today. It looks like they're going to make the playoffs. Long way to go yet. A lot of things could happen. Injuries, of course, but they're, that recent 3-game winning streak has really put them in good stead. Played the same amount of games as Calgary. They're 3 points ahead of them.
Right.
Played 1 game fewer than Utah, and they are 6 ahead of Utah, so they're looking pretty safe there.
Right.
They're 2 games behind the Kings to bump out of the wild card position. The Kings have played 2 fewer games though. So how do you see the rest of this season shaping up, and how did you come to the determination that this team is in good shape to get in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, as I wrote, I pointed out a couple things. First of all, the sort of stabilization of their defense, which I think we've seen is going on for a while. The sort of resurgence, although it's not like dominant, their offense is producing enough. It's still 50-50 hockey, so it's not like what you want. You want to be
good. I laud my soccer stats, and I know goal differential is weird, but they are a -11.
They're still a -11, right? Like, that is, you're absolutely right. Like, goal differential, like, we're at the point now where the goal part does matter, right? And to this point of the season, the Canucks have given up more than they have scored. they've certainly given up more than you would expect, given how well mostly they've played defensively. And the truth is they haven't scored enough. And so that's where we're back to. Now, it was interesting to look at, there was a particular, you can, obviously, this is the classic, lies, damn lies, and statistics kind of situation, right? You can slice the data how you want. So you have to be careful. But one of the interesting ones was the idea of the unblocked shot. And essentially a shot taken in a way, I think generally we would say quickly enough, because a block shot requires you being able to face the shooter or get in the way of the shooter. So you presume a shooter is going to try to get rid of a shot, while there's not a guy standing between you and the goal. And so an unblocked shot is a shot where you found a gap, you see the goal, you're letting it go. So the principle is that it's probably a good shot. The Canucks' shooting percentage for the last 10 games is like 4%. On the season, they've been shooting 6% on those kinds of shots. That's pretty good. Like, that's kind of league average. So right now, they're actually finishing below where they've been for most of the season. We know the Canucks in general have been, especially the last couple of seasons, a good finishing team. So there is an idea that, like, if we talk about regression, there's a positive regression situation here that, like, the numbers tell us they're probably going to start scoring a bunch. And that's a good thing. And that's why you start going, okay, the numbers to this point, they're like, well, they're kind of a 50-50 proposition right now, but there looks like there's some luck likely coming their way. And to just, extrapolate the 50-50 idea right now, they would get them, they take 50% of the points that are left to them on the season. They're playing 50-50 in terms of goals for and against, that gets them to 90 points. Well, they win a couple of those games that they were otherwise going to tie or lose, and all of a sudden they're 92, 93, 94, 95 points. And that's generally been the playoff bar that we talked about. And you look at the projection models, there's three kind of projection models I pay attention to, and all three of them have the Canucks finishing in that range. So, and as you noted, part of it is that the teams behind them have a lot of work to catch up. Like, this is the truth about the NHL. As stupid the design of the point system is, and that credit to the Four Nations for having 3-2-1. Like, that's just what the NHL should be doing. The way the NHL sets up its point system is very hard to catch up. And the closer you get to the end of the season, the less and less, obviously, opportunity there is for you to do so. So the Canucks do sit in the driver's seat against Calgary, against, the teams in the central Utah and what have you that are chasing them. Could they catch the Kings? Probably not. Do they want to catch the Kings? I'm not sure, because either way, no matter what happens in that first round, you're facing Edmonton or Vegas. Like, that's clear. So who do you want to face? I'm not sure what the answer is. But either way, the Canucks are in a very strong position. And it's going to take a huge fall off for them not to make the playoffs.
Who's the hottest team in the West? Guess.
Hottest team in the West? Is this a trick question? Or are you wanting me to give you my takes?
I'm just asking you to guess.
I'm going to guess.
Over the last 10 games, who has the best record?
Hottest team in the West over the last 10 games are the... It's not something dumb like the Los Angeles Kings, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay. Is it Utah?
No. It's the Jets and
the
Dallas.
Jets.
The Jets and Dallas.
Jets.
No, look, the reason that Jets have won 8 in a row, they're 8-2, 7-2-1. But the reason I raise it is after you go, like, Dallas is 7-2-1, after that, it's the Canucks and the Ducks are tied at 6-3-1. But a lot of those teams in particular, you look at the Pacific, Edmonton 5-4-1, Vegas 4-3-3, Kings 4-4-2,
right?
Colorado 5-4. Like, these teams are all like, maybe it's the part of the season, but it's like no one is really, apart from Winnipeg, is really running away from it. So I look at that. The Canucks have been through this really tumultuous period. They've had injuries, but you'd look at now they've removed allegedly a distraction with JT Miller. They've solidified their defense. They're hoping to get healthy. They're in pretty good shape. Yeah. And yet there's been so much angst this season. Now I get it. Like, after what happened last season, you don't just want to make the playoffs. You want to be relevant. You want to go further than you did last year. So I think, but that's the next phase of the conversation. But I have to ask you about two things here.
Can I just pick up on that point
Sure.
first? Actually, just they're in a playoff spot, and that's I certainly know that internally in the team, there's been I don't think frustration is a word, but they sort of sat back and being, why is everyone so angsty? Like, we're in a playoff spot. We haven't even played that well. Like, they know they haven't played that well, but there is that self-belief that we can be better and we are going to be better. So why don't we, and so I think that's something, but the same time, like your point that they are hanging, that we're still comparing them to last year's team, which I think is the right thing to do, because of look at what last year's team achieved, and they certainly are a long way off that. But they also, this is the other truth about hockey, is that they do really subscribe to the sort of win it, you get in the playoffs and anything can happen kind of mentality.
Yeah, well, I'll say you raise ticket prices yet again.
Yeah.
For next year, you damn well sure better compare yourself to last year if you're hiking up the price, but we don't have enough time to talk about that. I did want to ask you, let's start with the news of the day. Kevin Lankinens re-signed.
Yeah.
What, 4-year deal?
5-year deal.
So, 5-year deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5-year deal. So great news for Canuck fans, but tell me what that means for Thatcher Demko.
Are we going to get the horn every time we talk about a new signing now? The horn in the background? That was a good one.
I wish I was controlling that.
Yeah. We need some more drops on this show, Paul. Yeah, I mean, I obviously, one of the, thanks Canucks, I'm trying to get the kids out the door to daycare or to school. But no, I've spent, since we're now recording this Friday morning, I've spent the last.
They love a Friday signing, by the way, or Friday
thinking
transaction.
about it. At least I wasn't in the
Good
pool.
old Ben Kuzma, who works the Sunday, the Thursday shift, is dodging all this stuff. Patrick always falls on you.
Yeah,
they traded JT Miller. Now they made another trade. Now they made a signing.
At least I wasn't in the pool, as I always say. Yeah, let's start with the sort of stuff that you kind of go, oh, I mean, here's the truth. Kevin Lankinens is 29, right? He's never really been a starter in the NHL. Those are two truths. However, he's had a very good year, and even when he was a backup in Nashville and in Chicago, and he was sort of a 1A in Chicago one season, he's been good. Like, he's just been a solid, reliable, consistent player. Yes, he gives up bad goals from time to time, right? But that's true of almost every goalie. That's true of every goalie, but some more than others, right? But that's basically true of every goalie in the NHL. Like, the thing you have to recognize here is sort of the reality of the position, which is that shooters matter more than we recognize most of the time, and defenses certainly matter more than people tend to remember. So there's sort of two sides to that, which is to say, well, why does Kevin Lankinens not matter? If this defense is good enough, who matters? And go, I'm like, well, have you seen Archer Shilov's? And that is sort of, I'd say, the point in favor of Lankinens, which is that in the end, this is a guy that's been solid. He's been consistent. If you're looking to get a goalie on a decent price, they've done it. He's still less than Mackenzie Blackwood signed for, and Mackenzie Blackwood's a fine enough NHL goalie. It's a deal that secures a spot. Whether it's, he's not. I don't think he's the out and out starter, but he's a guy you could run in a duo. Or he's your backup. You're paying a lot for a backup, but this looks like a goalie that you're going to play in a duo. I think in the end it's a good signing. Now, could they have signed him for a little bit more for similar term, could they have signed him for less last summer? In the moment, no, because they locked themselves in. They also didn't recognize at the free agency, opening of free agency, that Demko was truly going to be a problem. It wasn't until the summer started unfolding. And, they were sitting there looking at their cap situation and not sure. I mean, don't forget, they had Tucker Pullman on the books, right? Like, they were going to be a cap team. They did not have a lot of flexibility to sign Lankinens, which was a problem in way of their own making, because they signed Vinny Desharnais and they didn't have to do that. But even if they had left Desharnais there, they'd have a bit of money to play with. But I don't think they were ever necessarily going to go long on term for their backup goalie, because they thought they had Thatcher Demko. Kevin Lankinens benefited twice in Thatcher Demko's injuries, right? Last summer, the fact that he was so far behind, Lankinens becomes the guy. And then now he's, again, benefiting from uncertainty around Demko's future. So it's a good spot for Lankinen on the whole. Like, he's a positive guy. I think he's been a pretty positive dressing room influence. Like, he's a guy that I think you want on your team. Is he going to perform until he's 34? Most goalies don't. But you could do worse, and the cap is going way up. So that's the other thing to remember, is it revalues, the inflation of the cap revalues salaries as we go. And so, he's still getting paid a lot more than he is this year to be the backup. And he is probably the best value goalie in the NHL right now, given his low wage. But if you're looking for...
So does it make Demko expendable, or do you think this is more a reaction to his continued injury history?
I think it's more the latter, and I think it's, they needed some kind of certainty. They don't have an obvious heir apparent. Like, Shilov's has been, let's be honest, disappointing. He sort of...
Where's Mikey DiPietro?
Well, I mean, DiPietro's a whole other story.
No, right? I'm just saying, like, people get... We know that I think every team does it, but in Vancouver in particular, you get a prospect, then like you look down the road when everyone's like, "Oh, how could you give up the goalie of the future?"
Yeah, but I mean, nobody's saying that about Nikita Tolopilo. Like, Tolopilo, I think has been an interesting enough prospect, but also, like, nobody's sitting there arguing that that he should be, that it's time to take a look. The way maybe they might have been with Thatcher Demko when he was first coming up, but certainly the uncertainty around Demko at this point means they needed to lock something in going forward. What this means for Demko's future in Vancouver, I don't know. I have a hard time imagining there's any trade value in him right now. Yeah. I mean, teams are going to be very, anxious about his health. Is he? I just, they've got him under contract for another year. Like, I assume they'll go into next year with him, but maybe they won't. I don't know. I don't think they're going to buy him out. That seems foolish, but they're certainly in an anxious spot. But Lankinen has shown enough this year that he can be a quality guy. He can't have a long run of games. We've seen that. He just can't. He can't bear that load. But he can be good in a 3-game stretch with a couple of games off, a 3-game stretch, a couple of games off. Like, he's done well enough in that sort of 1A role that, you start wondering, okay, is there a different route they go this summer? It certainly changed the dynamic too. If you're trying to build a team that is all in for next year because of Quinn Hughes as a reality, that is the other question: is Demko a bankable guy? I mean, the other thing is, you kind of wonder, does Demko? I mean, it's such a difficult situation, but, like, does he still want to be here? I don't know. He just doesn't seem, certainly. He hasn't played as well as he'd hoped. He certainly hasn't had the opportunity because of injury. He's been here a long time. Certainly, I think he was close to JT Miller. The room's changing, and sometimes, like, you just need to move on. I mean, that does feel like the grander picture here is, how much are they going to reset everything? We talk about Pettersson's future still, right? Like,
well, I want to get to that in a second, but first, I did want to bring up Quinn Hughes, obviously another guy, been struggling lately with an injury, but for the most part, he's someone who has been healthy. All this angst about will he go and play for the U.S., would have been interesting to see him in that tournament.
Yes.
At the same time, you have written a big feature, which we had planned for a while, about how there's the horn again, about how we have, let me frame it this way. At the start of the season, when we put these polls on the stories, it felt premature to say, we all know that he's the best defenseman the Canucks have ever had. But It felt premature to say, is he the best player the Canucks have ever had? And you still got arguments for Bure or the Sedins. But really beyond that, like, how he went from winning the Norris Trophy last year to in this year that as we've already talked about, has been a challenging year, and people see it as the Canucks have taken a drop down. Well, he's taken a step up. And there's all this other, that tremendous beginning at the start of the Canucks season last year. Oh my God, Brock Besser's having a career year. JT Miller, we haven't had a guy like that. Look at Pettersson, he's eating the league up. And then there's Quinn Hughes. All that other shit fell away. Yeah, but Quinn Hughes is still there, and in fact is playing better. Is he the best player the Canucks have ever had?
I mean, I think he is. I mean, well, let's see. Like it's now him.
He
or
will
Henrik.
be.
It's him or Henrik Sedin, right? Like that's the reality.
No, for me, it's him or Bure.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
For me, it's him or Henrik Sedin. Like
I love
Bure's the most
flavor of those
talented,
conversations.
exciting player we've ever seen. There's no doubt about that.
And did it for a fairly extended period of time before he left. I mean, you can make the argument when Bure was here, he was, if not a top 2, certainly a top 3 player in the whole NHL for 3 or 4 years, that's the rare thing. I mean, Henrik was very, very good. Same thing. You can look at his whole career, but it was a smaller window where he was truly, truly elite. And that's where I look at, like, Hughes is now he won the Norris last year, favorite to win it again this year, and he's still young.
Yeah. I mean, he's certainly on course to be the most, I think he's on course to be. We still need to see more. I guess you just have to build out. You have to build out, Bure has the 260 goal seasons, the 51 goal season. Like he has, he won the Rookie of the Year. Like Hughes has done something that Bure never did, right? He won the Norris Trophy. He was the best defenseman in the NHL.
Well, it's kind of difficult for Bure to win the Norris Trophy, Patrick.
No, but I'm just saying, like he won a trophy that wasn't just Rookie of the Year, right? Like he won 8 trophies. That's what I mean. And like Henrik Sedin won MVP, right? Like neither of those guys have won MVP. So, like Bure as a talent is remarkable. Bure as a talent is remarkable, and we know that, and so is Hughes, and so is Sedin's. Like he's certainly on course. I think to be. I'm hesitant to say that he is at this point, but he's certainly on course to be.
Well, okay, now let's finish up because we have gone long here. Let's finish up with a great counter argument to that. There were periods in Elias Pettersson's tenure as a Canuck where you'd say, oh, he's on track to be the best Canuck ever. He looked like an elite player. He looked like a guy who was going to compete for Hart trophies.
Yeah.
I know that there's stuff that is a lot of stuff. I don't want to say off the record, but you have your relationship with the players that you see every day when you go in to cover them. And you had talked to me that you saw signs from Pettersson before this break, after the JT Miller deal, where it just he looked more like his old self. Like I'm talking about away from the ring. He looked like whether a weight had been lifted off or whatever. Yeah. There was a lot of anticipation that going into the Four Nations, we would see a different player. We didn't.
No.
And I saw a lot of criticism of him, both in this market and outside this market. What's your sense of how the rest of the season goes for Pettersson?
Well, I mean, listen, emotionally, it was clear that he was feeling looser. But yeah, we still needed to see performance, and we have not seen enough performance. And certainly, the week after Miller was traded, he's still been fine defensively. But as I've written, the Canucks aren't paying him to be Guy Carpino. They're paying him to be Alex Barkov, and there's been very little evidence of that this season. And people are talking about, is he injured? He did have a bit of an injury after Christmas, but so maybe that is affecting him now. But certainly for most of the season, he has not been dealing with an injury. People keep telling me up and down, it's not dealing with an injury. And even if he's not skating as fast as he used to, I mean, remember, he used to skate pretty fast. And remember, he won the hardest shot, and he is not shooting. So which then makes you wonder, is there something going on physically with it? Is his wrist hurting him again? I don't know. Like, there's no evidence of that. And certainly, they're now away for a week and or 10 days. So I'll have to wait until he gets back, because he didn't come back from Four Nations before they went on the road trip. But trying to understand where his game is at. And that's been a question since it fell apart last year after the All-Star game. We're now a year into this. And he wasn't this poor before that. So there's something clearly there. Whatever it is, the pressure's on him now. And he knows it. He certainly knows it, right? Like, he's not shy about that. But can he, physically, is he able? Mentally, does he have the coping ability to deal with it? Yeah. So it's a big question. It's absolutely a huge question, and it's going to be the question going out the rest of the season because if
and there's only
obviously
one guy
if
who
you
can
put
ask
this together, then the whole point from the beginning, at the top, we were talking about the goal, not scoring enough. Well, that will be over because he will be scoring. Like the other part of this season, story of this season, is just how this team was designed to play a certain way, and their two star forwards weren't able to deliver like they did last year. Pettersson and Miller delivered last year in this same system, and this year they're not. And now it's about whether Pettersson can figure that out. Because for all you like about Philip Hedl and all you might like about Drew O'Connor, that's not who those guys are. Elias Pettersson needs to be the offensive catalyst up front of this team, and he has.
Okay, quickly, we got to finish up here, but Vegas, Utah, back-to-backs over the weekend. 2 days off, and then your LA daily double, Kings and Ducks. How many of those do the Canucks win?
Well, it is a tricky road trip. Vegas on Saturday night. I mean, they go in tomorrow, and the Canucks have had their moments playing in Vegas. I just think about kind of how they were playing before the break. And there was a bit of luck in some of that, but they're playing very well defensively. I just think they're still too fresh. Like, the reset with Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, and Marcus Pettersson, not Elias or Elias. The defense core has been playing better, but this is a whole new animal. Like, Vegas is always tough. So I think they're going to lose in Vegas. Sunday in Utah, a rink I've been to. A team that we haven't seen this year, who are fun and aggressive and whatever, and back-to-back. I mean, it's a tricky road trip. I think they'll win in Utah, which makes no sense because they'll be tired, but I think they win in Utah on Sunday afternoon, lose in LA, beat the Ducks, beat the Kraken, which is obviously past us, but
we'll deal with the Kraken next week, but yeah.
Kraken are next Saturday. But if we're looking at the next 4 games, they're going to go 2-2.
Excellent. Good stuff. I think they'll go 3-1.
Look at you. Always the optimist.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for watching, everyone. This is a bit of a longer one, but we had a lot of stuff to catch up on. Read Patrick's Quinn Hughes feature, his Kevin Lankinens reporting, and everything else that we have through the weekend. His prediction that the Canucks will make the playoffs, which will hold him to. Sign up for the Canuck Report. You get all that delivered to you. Leave your thoughts and comments, thoughts and prayers. USA, suck it.